Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Joe Post channel and my first ever proper video, and today we're going to be talking about The Last of Us cut content. So the first thing I find interesting, the first piece of cut content we're going to look at, is the original concept for the game. So originally The Last of Us was called Mankind, and featured an infection that only infected women, so it was still the cordyceps fungus but only affected women. Now I'm not going to lie, I'm glad they reverted this change because frankly it's pretty weird and I don't see how it impacts the story or the gameplay. But if you in the comments have any ideas why this would be interesting, let me know. Overall, I think it would still feature the same story, except like the woman, as in Ellie or Sarah or whatever the plan was, would still be immune, but the only woman who's immune rather than the only person who's immune. But I prefer the other version of the story because I feel like it has higher stakes, frankly. Not that like, yeah, I mean, like it's more interesting. It's all humanity rather than just half. It's a bit weird otherwise, you know. Well, anyways, on to the next one. In the remastered version of The Last of Us Part 2, you can use these lost levels, which are like parts of the game that were intended to be in originally, but were cut for one reason or another. One example of this is the boar hunt sequence, which was cut originally. It featured Ellie hunting a boar and then eventually cornering her into a bathroom, which it's like labour breathing, with reminder of Joel causing like a flashback to the traumatic event. And yeah, I'll run it then I'll just show you what it looks like. So yeah, overall, pretty cool. As you can see, it's maybe cut, but it could have been cool. I get why they didn't do it though, because like, it takes away from the farm sort of section of the story's idealistic type of theme it's trying to go for. And yeah. Next one is a story one featuring Joel's proposed like significant other in the story, who never actually eventually ended up being put into the story, known as Esther. He was meant to meet her in Jackson, pursue like a romantic relationship with her, which I thought would have been interesting because we haven't seen much of Joel being romantic aside from like Sarah's non-existent mother that we don't see, and Tess, I guess, but more of a partners in crime casual type of thing than more so than a romantic relationship, you know what I mean? But yeah, on to the next one. The next cut content I want to feature is something that originated in Uncharted 2 but was originally intended to be put in The Last of Us as well, is that Ellie was originally meant to be a mute character who didn't talk, and I suppose the idea of this is that it's meant to bring depth in the story that you'd form a relationship with them just through gameplay alone. But they ended up cutting this, and I'm quite glad about that because I really enjoy Ellie's attitude and personality. I think it's really wholesome, and I think she's mute. They've been missing a lot of really iconic moments. Cue the scene.
Oh, I'm sure your friend will be missing this tonight. Light on the reading, but it's got some interesting photos.
Now, Ellie, that ain't for kids.
Whoa! How the hell would he even walk around with that thing?
Get rid of that.
Well, hold your horses. I want to see what all the fuss is about. Oh, why are these all stuck together? I'm just fucking with you. Bye-bye!
On to our next one. So this one's a bit more controversial. So in some trailers leading up to The Last of Us Part 2, there's scenes featuring Joel, which chronologically didn't make sense with his death.
What the hell are you doing here?
You think I'd let you do this on your own?
So there's some speculation that potentially, maybe that he wasn't originally intended to die in the story. However, I think is that it's meant to throw people off so people didn't not buy the game because of Joel's death, you know what I mean? Right, on to our next one. So, as you can see in the concept art, originally Abby was a lot more skinny. I quite like this look though, I think she looks more scary. I wouldn't prefer it over what we've got because I do quite like Abby's design, but I think if we're going for a more straightforward villain in Abby, who's like more black and white, it could be interesting to see. So, an original concept for The Last of Us Part 2 as well is that originally in the story, Ellie killed Abby, which I think was a very interesting move. I mean, it's a much more desolate take in the story and a lot more hopeless. And it like features Ellie giving into her emotion and just giving into the violence and just not caring about anything else. Now, I personally would have hated it if this was the case because then Ellie would have no hope at redemption. And that would be the end of her story pretty much. You know what I mean? She's fucked it up. I'm really glad they didn't make this decision, but it's definitely an interesting like kind of point of view to look at because a lot of people really did want Ellie to kill Abby, which I think is insane. Like, I get the whole revenge thing and you hate Abby because she killed Joel, but Joel wasn't a great guy either. You got to keep that in mind. You know what I mean? It's just the same story. You know what I mean? It's like the cycle of violence. Joel killed Abby's father, then Abby killed Joel, then Ellie went to kill Abby. So if Ellie killed Abby, it just keep going on and on. You know what I mean? So, for the story's sake, I think it was better that it didn't happen. Okay, thanks for watching, guys. Like and subscribe and have a lovely day. Goodbye.